Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the Product Development Podcast. In this episode, I spoke with Alina back in June 2023, and it was audio only. But due to demand, I've put some of these episodes onto YouTube in video format. Future episodes will also be the video version of them rather than audio, so please make sure to like and subscribe to see more content like this in the future. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Alina. Welcome to the Product Development Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wakeling, a product manager passionate about enriching my own understanding of how great products are made. In this episode, I speak with Alina Verbenchuk, who is Senior Product Manager at HypeAuditor, an all-in-one solution to empower influencer marketing campaigns. She is also founder of Verbetcetera, which looks to provide career consultations and courses for managers, developers, and other roles in the IT industry. She was previously a program lead at Google and also product manager for creator tools at YouTube. Alina, many thanks for joining the podcast. It's great to speak with you.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to start the podcast by actually reading one of your LinkedIn posts, because it was part of the reason why I wanted to speak to you today after reading it, because I certainly resonated with it myself. In the post where you said, when I joined Google in 2015, I had an insecurity that I couldn't easily and quickly overcome. It was my non-technical background. I had to deal with client issues that were often rooted in technical problems. I needed to speak to engineers every day without sounding stupid, and above all things, I wanted to be able to build stuff on my own. Long story short, I joined Thinkful Full Stack Bootcamp and spent the whole year learning how to code. The whole experience of being non-technical gave me a lot of empathy towards really talented people in the industry or wannabe PMs and techies who just don't know where to start their journey or how to improve their knowledge to get to where they want to be. There is so much information everywhere, so many videos, books, and experts that it's impossible not to get lost and not to lose time boiling the ocean, as you put it. Well, what you really need is someone who can structure the information for you and give you the right foundation. And of course, that's where you start mentioning your own company, Verbetcetera, and your tech skills for PMs and business leaders course. And I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit later. But I guess before we delve into your story, perhaps we can try and define some of the terms that we'll be using. So starting at the top level, you're not a technical PM per se, but in your eyes, what is the fundamental difference between a technical product manager and a non-technical product manager?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. I think many people discuss this topic all the time, whether PM should be technical, non-technical, whether what's enough for a PM in terms of technical skills. In my personal experience, I have a very unique, I would say, perspective on that question because I'm personally non-technical, but I worked at a company that prefers to hire technical product managers, Google. In particular. And even during the interview process, you have to go through interviews that are covering some technical topics, and in particular, system design and some other kind of minor, less complex topics. So in terms of approach to that, I think it's a great approach to hire technical product managers or product managers who have technical skills, but also candidates who are non-technical but are still good, are still great in terms of product management skills. It's difficult for them to break through that ceiling. And that's where kind of my journey started because I wanted to be there, but I couldn't get there because of my background. And yeah, as you just read in the post, I had to go through a very long journey. But I think that overall, it's not always necessary to go through such a long journey. There might be a program or a course that you can take and make it in a shorter time, I would say. And in terms of the difference between technical, non-technical, I think it's kind of self-explanatory that product managers who are just product managers, they usually work on less technical products, or they are more focused on, say, business aspects of the product, even sometimes go to market part, while technical product managers, at least in my experience, what I've seen, they usually come from very technical backgrounds. Maybe they are software developers themselves. They act more like, I would say, architects with good communication skills so that they can explain and sell their ideas, but they're very deeply into the development process. So they're somewhere in between product manager and a tech lead rather than just a product manager. So that's what I've seen in my practice.
Yeah, I guess maybe some applications could be things like API product manager, or maybe controlling, as you said, the more technical infrastructure elements of something, which I suppose that technical knowledge there in particular really gives them that advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, at YouTube, I worked at Google Analytics team, and part of my team was responsible for kind of client side, so everything that the user sees. But part of my team was also responsible for the data. And on the data side, there were only technical product managers, and they were more like very into data itself. It was always about like small tweaks or like models. I would say it had nothing to do with what like classic product manager courses or books teach you. It was more about like, okay, we're developing this data
Mm.
model, and we need to make sure, I don't know, the decrease in data latency or some metric that we are working on. And it has nothing to do with some kind of user research or, I don't know, customer development, as they say. No, it was purely technical.
Yeah, I have seen job listings for a Google product manager role before, and I've noticed that often the prerequisite is a computer science degree. So there's the element of technical foundations, I guess, which certainly they're expecting. I guess, is that more typical with that type of organization?
Yeah, I think so. Overall, that's the case. However, I think they lowered the bar for technical knowledge, so it's not as strict as it was before. I
Mm.
think previously you had to be like really technical. I think with time, this bar has lowered. They even write like if you heard about the book How Google Works, there is even this chapter about how they think about hiring product managers, that they should be both technical and kind of business savvy, in the sense that they should be on the same level, like speaking the same language with the engineers. And yeah, in my particular case, I didn't have that in the very beginning of my career. And I was very, as I said, I was very insecure and didn't know where to
Mm.
start.
Yeah, in one of the previous podcasts, I spoke with Gisela Rossi, who is a engineering manager, and she was talking about what makes a great product and engineering relationship. And she talked about communication as a key part of that, but also talking in different abstraction layers. So having engineering moving up an abstraction layer or two to more clearly explain technical issues, challenges, or perhaps why something might take longer to build. But touching on the communication point there, do you think that good communication between product and engineering can kind of overcome the lack of technical knowledge from the product side potentially?
Yeah, I think so. If you're a PM and you have a very strong like technical lead, I think that's enough to kind of deliver and ship a good product, even if you don't have a technical background
Mm.
overall. So I think it's when, like, for example, when engineers are complaining a bit about product managers being like not clear about the product requirements, I think product managers can also complain about engineers not being very clear about technical requirements and technical limitations. So it's like it's a two-way street, and obviously we can meet in between. And I worked with really, I would say, talented engineers where I didn't even need to understand technicalities and like details at all. I
Mm.
could have survived without it. It's just on my, it was my personal kind of preference to be a bit more into how it works. But honestly, if you have strong engineers, you don't need that.
Do you think typically, obviously stereotyping here, but the typical engineer maybe respects the product manager more if they can bring more technical knowledge and kind of they don't have to speak in such layman's terms about certain things perhaps? Do you think there's an element of respect there as well?
I think so, absolutely. And even because I see how it applies also for product managers who are talking to business teams, for example. And when business teams are a bit more kind of technical savvy or like making an effort to understand the limitations, you start to respect them much more. First of all, they stop asking very basic questions and they save your time. So it means that you're on the same page. You can start developing things quicker, you get to write questions quicker, you don't stumble on, I don't know, something that's very basic, but you rather go deep into, okay, what's the real problem here and how can we solve it? I can imagine how frustrated an engineer can be when a product manager is like, okay, but can you please explain me this whole system, how it works? And this is obviously not something that they would like to do. One thing that I would say, that if there's a strong engineering culture in the company, everything is written down, you have like design docs, you have documentation where a product manager can go and read about it. It's like solving 50% of the problem,
Mm.
because you don't have to sit down and annoy your colleagues and be just like, oh, please explain it to me. No, you can go online and read about it. And even if you're not that technical, I think you still can understand majority of the things, as you said, abstraction layers, and you can understand the concepts. And after that, you're like, okay, clear. So that these are our limitations. I can ask this and that, but overall, I understand how the system works.
I suppose about the respect thing, if you actually went out your way to read the documentation, and even if you don't understand necessarily all of it,
Yeah,
potentially then you
yeah,
can go to the engineers with that and say, actually, can I clarify a couple of things in there? I suppose that is much better than just,
exactly.
can you explain everything from scratch?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know, microservices, like architecture, you're just like,
Mm.
whoa, if it's not written down, it's difficult.
So if we go back to the kind of beginning when you had these, I don't know if imposter syndrome is the wrong word or not, but that sense of lack of technical knowledge in terms
Mhm,
of being a blocker to you fitting in well at Google, let's say, and doing the best of your.
mhm.
What was the moment that you realized that actually there's something missing here, which may be a problem? I don't know. What was the moment for you?
Good question. I don't remember a particular moment, but I think, no, actually, I do remember a particular moment, but this moment isn't connected to Google directly because that was the moment when I was actually thinking about a side project, and I wanted to. It was me and my teammate, and we were thinking, oh, we need a developer, like we need an engineer to help us. And we started to reach out to people. We tried to hire an engineer. We couldn't do that. And I understood how bad I am at technical, like at understanding who I need to hire, what they need to do,
Mm,
how to build a product. Because like I'm coming from a business background. I graduated from a business school. I did a master's degree back then. And I was like, okay, I kind of understand what people need, but I have no idea how to build it. And this was before no code kind of era started, before ChatGPT, before everything. So basically, we started to look for people. We couldn't hire anyone because we didn't know what are the requirements and how to do that. We spoke to a couple of folks. It was very expensive. We didn't understand what's needed. And then I'm just like, okay, maybe we should. And I think it wasn't even me. I think it was my teammate who said, okay, maybe we should just start learning this
mm,
ourselves, and then maybe we could hire someone. And
mm.
I'm like, okay, let's do that. And thank God back then we had education reimbursements. So financially, we could also be supported by the company. So we just started like a full year, 1 year boot camp.
So it sounds like it wasn't just a case of needing to write user stories and not knowing which word to use. It's actually much more fundamental in terms of actually how to kind of build a product and the resources you need for that and how it kind of ties together. And I think that's
Yeah.
so. From that moment, then, where did that story go from there? What was your sort of next step? Maybe you can talk a bit about that journey that you took on for that year.
Yeah, so me and my teammate, we actually, so I think he mostly did the research. Like he was like, okay, what are the best boot camps? What can we do in terms of learning how to code? I think we immediately understood that we need like a full stack boot camp. We didn't want to specialize in one particular domain. And then there were a couple of options. We went through the websites that have like course reviews, etc. And that's how we selected Thinkful. And I was very happy with my mentor. I remember the day when he said that he's leaving, and I was crying. I was so upset. So I think the mentor experience was really cool. Since then, I really fell in love with kind of one-on-one mentoring.
Mm,
That's why a year later I started Verbetcetera, because for me it was like a life-changing experience. I understood how much you can influence the person in terms of career trajectory and life in general. And I was like, yeah, this works. Kind of, it was a good way to start. Then I didn't kind of transfer to product management immediately. I started because I was working at operations back then in product operations. So I started to automate some processes, like some simple stuff using like JavaScript, TypeScript, some forms, this, that, some easy kind of to assemble websites, very very easy basic stuff, but it accelerated me so much in comparison with my teammates. And the next thing I did was ask, like basically data training, dashboards, SQL, all that stuff as well. That accelerated me as well because I've learned this mostly by myself. I didn't do this in the bootcamp, but I asked a lot of people kind of inside Google, okay, how to do this, how to do that. And also because at Google you have so like everything is open, you have a lot of documentation about everything. It was easy for me to learn, and I started teaching others. We started like a course. like we started 2 coding courses, one for Python, another one for SQL, for non-technical people, for non-technical employees. And I saw how cool it was for them to kind of stop being helpless and stop being like, oh, I need somebody's help. No, I'm going to actually go and build this dashboard myself. So obviously these are basic skills, and I didn't become a developer, but it helped me to a kind of progress in my own career, b teach other people that it's not as scary as it seems. See, yeah, overall, if to feel empowered that even if I don't understand the technical concept, it's okay. I'm not supposed to. I wasn't born with this knowledge. I'm just gonna go and learn it.
You mentioned SQL there, so from your perspective, what's the value of that in particular in terms of learning?
I think that's the best skill to learn if you're thinking about, okay, where do I start? Because it's relatively easy. It's relatively understandable, especially for people coming from, say, I don't know, business backgrounds, because it's like an Excel table, but kind of on steroids, and you can manipulate it in the way that you want. And I think every company has some kind of data, and it's very easy to become like more technical savvy coming from like SQL starting point, because you can start building dashboards. Basically, you become independent, and that's the best thing, because you don't need to ask anyone, or you can basically make conclusions on your own and continue your, I don't know, product research, hypothesis testing with just what you have.
I mean, in terms of if someone's thinking about, okay, I'm a PM, I want to develop my technical skills. If you were kind of, apart from obviously promoting your own interests, I suppose,
Yeah.
putting that to the side for the moment, what is a good kind of structured course to think about? What are the key things which, if you'd say, okay, 5 things to learn, I recommend you to do this, maybe in a certain order, if you think that makes sense for a typical PM role, whatever that might be, let's say a SaaS company or a kind of product which is online, let's say.
Good question. I haven't thought about it very thoroughly, but if I could kind of turn back time, go back to 2015, I would definitely ask someone for like a list of topics that I would need. And again, life hack, because you can go also like on our website, or like any system design course that you have on YouTube, or like you have like system design courses or some other courses about like full stack web development. Just take out the topics and create like a playlist on YouTube to watch, because basically all information exists out there. It's just that information is not very well structured, or different mentors explain it in a different way. So it might not be the best way to learn it, but if you want to make it like quick and free, just go on YouTube and create a playlist for yourself and start learning those concepts. I think it might take you like a couple of weeks to understand the basics, and you can start anywhere from how internet works, because literally this is the question from Google interviews. Can you please explain me how internet works? And a lot of people just fail on that, because we kind of understand it, but then when you sit down and you need to write it down on a piece of paper, you're like, oh, I forgot this and this, and I forgot how this works. And then to more advanced topics like machine learning, language models, etc.
Do you think the rise of generative AI in particular has changed the, I suppose, reliance and the need, let's say, for more technical knowledge in the sense of certain things you can just do a good engineering prompt and hopefully get the code for it given to you automatically, etc. I mean, do you see that kind of really changing the way, if you cast your mind back to 2015, if you had what's available now to everyone for free for the most part, would that have been different back then?
Yeah, I think so, that overall it changes a lot of things. But if you want to know the theory, and for example, to go into the interview, you would still need to have some kind of theoretical background or foundation in your head. In terms of like ChatGPT and I don't know, piece of code, yes, it still would be nice to have someone to ask some basic questions. If not ChatGPT, I don't know, your friend or an engineer. How would you do this in a more like optimal way? Because it's not always that ChatGPT knows the most optimal way. Yeah, and some basic things, they still might be difficult when you're doing them the first time. Now I think it changed like a lot of things changed. So you can definitely do this with help of ChatGPT or agents
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, yeah, to touch on Verbetcetera then, what do you offer on that side? How do you kind of tend to structure courses there? Because I believe You alluded to it earlier about mentorship as well. Is that part of that? Maybe you can talk a bit about how all that comes together.
Yeah, so I think at Verbetcetera, what we tried to do is to structure and curate the content in a good way so that you could go into an interview and pass like an average, I would say, an interview of average complexity to a PM role. So we have several lectures. We wrote down all the topics that we thought are very important for product managers to know. I was very specific about the fact that this course should be led by the engineers, not the product managers, even if product managers are very savvy. I don't believe that they can answer all the questions. So it's actually a technical lead from a high, like a scale up company, a very fast growing company, who explains step by step from the very beginning how you can develop, how you can go from like a simple website to an application, like to a web application, to then like mobile application, and to kind of more complex things. So yeah, it gives a good theoretical understanding, and then you can just go to an interview with that knowledge, and you can go to work with that knowledge. And I believe that with that course you can start talking to people in a, I would say, in a very like in an equal way in terms of your knowledge and just the same language.
Thinking about the skills that you've picked up, the soft skills, the hard skills, in terms of what you're doing now with HypeAuditor, let's say as well, does it make you think very differently? Do you approach problems in a very different way now?
Yeah, actually, but in a very peculiar way, in a very funny way, because before I had technical skills or before I went through a boot camp, I thought that being technical is like a secret sauce, like a magic thing behind all successful products, that without, like, I don't have anything to do in this industry if I'm not technical. After the bootcamp, after developing some of the things myself, after launching Verbetcetera, after working as a product manager, I actually understood that technology is not enough. Well, technology is great, but it happens like once in a lifetime that we, or like once in a decade, we see something new like ChatGPT like appearing, or I don't know, Apple launching their new glasses or something like that. But in all other cases, if you're launching your own business, if you're launching your own startup, say, or like a product, you still need to understand people, and you should not kind of discount people skills, product management skills, business skills. And that's what was an outcome of my kind of technical journey. So I kind of started value what I already had, not necessarily kind of striving and being like beating myself up for the fact that, oh, I'm not a data scientist. Why I'm not like a data scientist? I should be more like technical. But you should have technical knowledge, and when you feel that it's enough for you, you can stop there. But then speak to people, talk to your users, and this is very important. And like talking to users and basically find like deriving insights from your interviews or your research is equally important, if not more important sometimes, than an ability to build a great technical system, I would say.
How do you find the difference between the YouTube side and where you are now at HypeAuditor, and just because I assume there's a very different role,
Yeah.
what you're doing on a day to day. So maybe you can talk about just your experience working for that big company and then what I assume is a smaller company at HypeAuditor.
It's funny because you might have the same title in like big company, in a bigger company, in a smaller company, but job will be completely different. And at a bigger company, it definitely has to do more with kind of communication, cross-functional collaboration, sometimes politics, but a lot of things like reviews, being like stick to the process, being sure that you're doing the right thing, being very cautious. Bigger companies, I think they tend to be more cautious because they have kind of more responsibility for what they're doing, and that's okay. That's how it should work. And things are much slower, much slower. So you can work on one, I don't know, screen for a year, and like keep polishing it until you get it right, and only then launching it. With a smaller company, first of all, we don't have a luxury of, I would say, almost unlimited resources or like to hire people as much as we can. So, yes, you are more kind of hands-on. You have a more hands-on experience. As I said, you're doing more things yourself. You don't have other people to help you, and it's not always that you can delegate these smaller things to other people. For example, we had a particular go-to-market position at YouTube that I very much miss now. I mean, that person would help me a lot, because now go-to-market is also on my plate and I have to be responsible for that. Same applies to, say, engineering, etc. And as I said, in a smaller company, things are less regulated, less documented, like there are just less documentation about stuff. So some of the things you have to figure out, or as I said, sit down with people, and it's more like you kind of discuss things verbally rather than you just go somewhere online in a wiki and you read about it. And a lot of things kind of take time in that sense. But you also move faster. You're also allowed to break things more, which kind of is a bit more like it's liberating for some people. For me as well, I wanted to go into more kind of entrepreneurial startup world rather than just to be in only bigger company environments, because it's very safe, but it's also very slow. And I wanted to see, okay, where it's faster, but also less safe. And I also feel much more closer to kind of real impact of my work, because I can see how it influences company's bottom line, whether the product was successful or not, whatever they say. I mean, at a bigger company, at any FANG company, you're so far away from kind of profits and losses. So you're so far away from revenue stream, even if you have a KPI of particular, I don't know, revenue number for the company, you're still very far away, because there are like whole organizations who are responsible for this bottom line. And here, you as a PM, you have so much autonomy and so much responsibility that it's also kind of, it makes you a bit like a mini CEO of this product, and you have to be responsible from it from A to Z.
So if you could give some advice on someone looking to start their journey into brushing up their technical skills, how would you kind of summarize it to kind of bring everything together? What's the first step? What's the kind of the follow-up? And also kind of what's the time frame? You know, how long should people think about spending on developing this particular part of their skill set?
Great question. I think it depends on the goal. So imagine I go to ChatGPT and ask these questions. So I basically would understand first what I want to do. If I want to, I don't know, pass a technical interview or like become a technical product manager, this will be one course of actions, one list of things that I would need to do. If I just want to understand my engineering team better, that's another thing. And if I want to, say, switch my career path to software engineer, it will be like a third path. So I would first ask myself, okay, if it's like an interview, there's like a particular list of topics that you need to learn. And you probably can do it like, I would say, 6 months or so, from the very basic topics to more advanced topics. If we're talking about like, I want to understand my team better, well, it might be a shorter time frame. You might even just sit down with your technical lead and ask them to explain you the concepts, read about it, and I would just like probably ask them, okay, how would you approach this problem? Like, what should I read about? What's the best, I don't know, book about it, or the best video? What would you recommend? Again, you might have like a senior PM on the team or like head of product. You might ask them, okay, what do you think? What should I know about this thing, about the system? And third, obviously, if you're switching to a software engineering path, I would recommend like, I don't know, a boot camp, a mentor, a very serious approach. And this might take, I don't know, a year, a couple of years, depending on how often you code, etc. So it all depends on your goal.
Yeah, I think fundamentally learning is a lifetime thing, isn't it? Anyway, so it's always going to be there.
Absolutely.
It's always going to be growing. So learning the theory is one aspect of it, and sitting down with a book or a course or whatever. But obviously, kind of practice makes perfect. So in terms of the practice side and the repetition of learning, etc., you know, what was your experience with that, and what would you recommend to other people as well in terms of the practical application of the things that they're learning on that journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think theory is just one part of the equation, but then practice is what actually makes you understand things. So definitely go out and start trying things and start writing your own code, or like building your first dashboards yourself. And as soon as you see that, you also will understand that, okay, this is like step one, but there are so many other steps that I can take, because you can iterate, you can improve the thing that you already built. And it will, this practical kind of journey would give you much better understanding of what you need, how the products are built, what you need to learn than any book or any like course. So definitely try it yourself.
I think also motivation from my perspective, I think about any time I learn something, if there's an output from it, if there's a tangible thing that is the result of that
Yeah.
learning, it's motivational at that point. You can apply that to all sorts, I guess. But what was the thing that you really enjoyed the most as well, of all the things you kind of touched upon and learned, whether that's the mentorship side, the SQL learning, down in the weeds or whatever, what was it that you particularly enjoyed?
I think two things. First, that I finally could build things myself and that I wasn't afraid to fail. I finally understood that it's okay that I don't know things and I can actually Google them or I don't know, ChatGPT them or like watch a video on YouTube and problems are solvable, because it was such a relief to know that I can build things myself, because I had so many ideas, but I didn't know how. I felt limited by the fact that, oh, I don't know where to start. But when you kind of learn it as a skill, like Googling helps you a lot. And second, obviously, yeah, as you mentioned it already, I think overall, like mentorship, meeting new people, helping them, seeing how they progress in their careers, receiving like thank you messages, I don't know, a year later saying that, your course helped me to pass an interview and this was a difficult interview, so thank you for that. And I see how my own kind of, I would say, insecurity actually turned into a much more empowering thing, that I understood that I'm not alone. So there are also other people who also feel a bit that there might be something else for them in terms of kind of building things and starting a new job, applying to a new position, and not limiting themselves with the fact that they don't know something.
Well, I hope that inspires some people who are listening to start improving some of those technical skills and going on that journey. Whether it's, as you said, becoming a technical PM or just being able to talk to engineers better or become an engineer yourself. If people want to find a bit more about yourself and the company, Verbetcetera, where can they find you?
We have a website called verbetcetera.com, but I can also leave some links if you have a description and we can add them. Yeah.
Great. I'll leave links in the show notes below anyway. And yeah, thanks so much for joining. It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Alina.
having
Speak
me.
soon.
I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Product Development Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your preferred podcast platform and follow for future episodes. And I'll see you in the next one.